Hello world, White Eye Productions here, and I'm giving you the basics of writing. Now, all good authors know that a good story needs a couple things. It needs one, a good plot, a good sturdy plot that'll drive it right through to the end. Second is a good set of characters that you actually, what authors like to do with characters is they leave some room for imagination. Now that I'll get to at a later point. The third one is setting. Multiple settings do work, but sometimes you can focus it on one setting and it does work also. Fourth is conflict. And fifth is title. Now, I'm going to be focusing on conflict because most people think conflict is a man versus man. One, the protagonist, the good guy, against the antagonist, the main bad character, bad guy, fighting it out. That is one of 5 different types. I will give you 4 today. Our first conflict is, of course, man versus man. The good old good guy versus bad guy fight it out to the end. Big climax in this story, the epic fight, the end fight. Man versus society. This one has people going, what? Man versus society. What is this supposed to mean? Take the Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement. That is a man, well, technically this is a group, but we'll just phrase it as a man versus society factor. Because they were fighting for the blacks' rights back in the 50s, 60s, whatever. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at history, but you know what I mean. Now, that is a perfect example. Many have interpreted that also to other things. A book called Boot Camp, in fact, took a man versus the society of his parents who did not like how he was acting and the society of the correction center that he was put in. Now that society is actually very cruel. It's a good book, Boot Camp. Man versus nature. You're like, what? Nobody ever does that. Yes, they do. Gary Paulson wrote a book called Hatchet, where the main character Brian stuck in a plane crash in the middle of nowhere in Canada. Well, he does have to learn how to survive. That's a good one. You should give that one a read too if you want a good man versus nature effect. And finally, man versus self. Well, that's sort of explanatory. We all have internal conflict like, should I do this? Should I not do this? That type of thing. Let me give you a couple examples more from my own book that I have been writing. Now, notice, I'm not done with it yet. I said writing. You can check it out at figment.com. Just type in the title Lives. Lives. The description should be something about a teenage rebellion. Now you're like, what? A teenage rebellion? Let me give you the little rundown. What happens in the book is the federal government of the United States puts an unfair teenage law into effect. Basically, they don't put the whole population under martial law. The governors agree at the same date, at the same time, to put all their teenagers under martial law. Have them be the bad guy. The quote is to protect our youth. No matter if you're a good standing youth like a nerd and all this community service, or if you're a churchgoer, or if you're basically a rebel, a pot smoker, if you're like anything, they don't care. They just want you under control and they want you out of the way. They want the adult. And it's just like, that's not right. So a bunch of teenagers hate this. I mean, every other one does. So the federal government uses an army made of teenagers who are paid off. This is something that automatically like, what the heck is going on here? So what they do is they rebel literally the first night that the law is in effect. Now, at the center of all this, in Wisconsin, James Hawk is stuck in the middle of this. He originally told his friends, I'm not doing this rebellion. I'm sorry, guys. He gets pulled into it. And in the end, he is the biggest contributor to their project. So, I will explain to you a bit detailed in the book. Later in my book, I have a man versus society, the Teenage Rebellion, and James pitting himself against the entire federal court system. Man versus nature. In the book, along when they're fighting, they are stuck in the bitter cold Wisconsin winter in below zero weather. That is man versus nature right there. Man versus self is James's fight inside because he knows this is right, but at the same time, he's confused. His life has not been good. His parents are constantly gone on business trips. His older cousin, Kalen, takes care of him. He's a wise guy, but in the end, James has no parental figure really besides Kalen. And he's internal conflicting if he did the right thing or not. And then finally, there is man versus man, where James faces off against the main antagonist in this story, the main hawk, basically the government teenagers, Chaz, and they go head on several times before finally it's the big boom. It's done. This is it. But it's also a book that teaches a life lesson. Now, with this conflict, you have to teach something. I'll show you what you got to teach in a bit. Stay tuned, everybody. Just look. My next video is now going to be on the lesson or the plot of the book. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching. This is White Out Productions signing out.